A woman is accusing Sean Diddy Combs of and her when she was 16 years old in 2000.
In the meantime, let's go back to New York City. Want to get some updates on the case that is unfolding there regarding Sean Diddy.
One of the most shocking twists in the ongoing saga of Sean Diddy Combs is the mysterious disappearance of his mother, Janice Combs. A woman who has long stood by her son, fiercely defending him through controversies and legal battles, has now vanished without a trace. What could have driven her to flee? Buckle up. This is a story filled with scandal, secrecy, and unanswered questions. The bombshell news broke earlier this week. Janice Combs has left the country. And this wasn't just a quiet getaway. It was a calculated, almost covert escape that has left even those closest to her scrambling for answers. This isn't a casual retreat. It feels like she's running from something or someone. For weeks, Janice was Diddy's most vocal supporter, releasing statements calling the allegations against him a public lynching. She pleaded for the world to withhold judgment, portraying herself as a heartbroken mother standing by her son's innocence. It seemed she was prepared to fight for him at all costs. So, why the sudden disappearance? That's the million-dollar question. Some speculate she may have learned something so unsettling that she had no choice but to run. Others wonder if she was pressured into silence. Could there be hidden secrets lurking in her past? One's now coming back to haunt her? Whatever the case, Janice Combs' disappearance adds another layer of mystery to an already explosive saga. And as more details emerge, one thing is clear: this story is far from over.
That kind of environment growing up in is going to have an impact on a child growing up. Now, it doesn't make excuses for what people do in adulthood, and the form that can take really depends on a lot of different things, including things such as what are the family values? Are the family values about, being open and honest about things? Or if there's trauma in a family, do families deal with it? Or how is that child?
Let's start with the swirling rumors about Janice Combs and her possible connection to Diddy's alleged misdeeds. For years, whispers have circulated about the wild parties she hosted at their Mount Vernon home when Diddy was just a boy. But these weren't your typical neighborhood gatherings. According to childhood friends featured in recent documentaries, these parties were anything but ordinary. Tim Patterson, a longtime friend of Diddy, described them as chaotic and deeply unsettling. He claimed it wasn't unusual to stumble into rooms filled with activities no child should ever witness. Patterson even suggested that growing up in such an environment may have influenced Diddy's later behavior. Could these early experiences be the root of the controversies surrounding him today?
According to the Rolling Stone, the doc features an alleged childhood friend of Puff's, hip-hop producer Tim Dog Patterson. He alleged that Janice, Diddy's mom, would often throw parties at Diddy's childhood home. He says that during the parties, it wasn't uncommon to walk into rooms where adults was having that was just there.
Here's where things get even murkier. Janice Combs has long been seen as a fiercely protective mother, someone who worked tirelessly to give Diddy a better life. She sent him to private schools, dressed him impeccably, and moved the family to a safer neighborhood after his father's tragic death. So how do these stories of wild parties fit into that narrative? Could it be that she was simply doing what she thought was necessary to provide for her son, even if it meant turning a blind eye to the chaos? Or was she more deeply involved in that lifestyle than anyone ever realized? The contradictions raise more questions than answers.
Talking about the parties, Tim says, verbatim, "That's what we were privy to. This was what we were fed. Was it desensitizing us? I'm sure it was. Were we aware of it? No, that was just Saturday night." In the doc, per Rolling Stone, this type of childhood is alleged to be why Tim, the longtime friend of Diddy's, Puff believes that Puff found himself in the position he is in now.
And then there's the timing of her disappearance, just as Diddy's legal troubles reached a boiling point. With more accusers coming forward and explosive documentaries airing,
Coincidence?
Janice vanished.
Highly unlikely.
Coincidence? Highly unlikely. Insiders speculate her sudden departure might be an attempt to avoid getting dragged into the legal storm. If those infamous childhood parties were as wild as people claim, there's a real chance she could be called to testify. And if she were put under oath, what would she say? But it doesn't stop there. Sources suggest Janice didn't just leave quietly. She allegedly took a significant amount of money with her. Money that Diddy drowning in mounting legal expenses, could desperately need. If true, it raises even more questions about her motives. Is she fleeing out of fear, knowing what might come next? Or was she cutting ties and securing her own future while she still had the chance? Either way, her actions have left a massive void in Diddy's support system, just when he needs it the most.
Another question that we just can't ignore is the role of power. Because one question is, how does somebody become the way they are? And then another question is, how are they allowed to stay the way that they are? And I think that also speaks to this kind of, lack of accountability.
What's even more puzzling is the impact Janice's disappearance has had on the Combs family. Diddy's children, already thrust into the media spotlight by their father's legal troubles, are now grappling with their grandmother's sudden absence. Janice was a central figure in their lives, often seen at red carpet events and family gatherings. Her abrupt departure has left them reeling, with one insider describing the family dynamic as completely shattered. It's hard not to wonder how this will shape their perception of both their father and grandmother moving forward. Will they see it as abandonment or something more?
Everyone keeps saying to me, like, how did you keep, why did you keep going? Why were you there? I'm like, it literally is around me. If I don't stay at home, this is the atmosphere I'm in. Like, I have no choice.
And here's where things get even more complicated. The FBI is reportedly keeping a close eye on Janice Combs' disappearance. While she hasn't been charged with any crimes, her connection to Diddy's case could make her a person of interest. Some insiders believe it's only a matter of time before her name surfaces on a wanted list, especially if authorities suspect she's hiding crucial information. For now, her whereabouts remain a mystery. Some say she's in Europe, while others believe she's somewhere in the Caribbean. Wherever she is, she's managed to stay off the grid, a nearly impossible feat in today's hyper-connected world. But the broader implications of her escape are just as troubling. For starters, it casts doubt on the image she's carefully cultivated over the years. While Janice has publicly defended Diddy, her actions tell a different story, one of self-preservation and possibly guilt. Could she know more than she's letting on? And if so, what does that mean for Diddy's case? Her absence could also weaken his legal defense. It's much harder to argue that Diddy is a victim of circumstance when one of his most loyal supporters has suddenly vanished. If prosecutors believe Janice fled to avoid testifying, it could fuel suspicions that there's more to the story than meets the eye. Then there's the question of legacy. Janice has long been seen as a symbol of resilience in the Combs family, a single mother who raised a mogul against all odds. But her sudden disappearance threatens to tarnish that image, casting a dark shadow over everything she's built. It's a stark reminder that even the most carefully constructed facades can crumble under pressure. As the story continues to unfold, one thing is clear: Janice's escape has added another layer of chaos to an already volatile situation. Whether she's running from the law, the media, or her own conscience, her actions have left behind a trail of unanswered questions. And while Diddy prepares for the fight of his life, he now has to do so without the woman who has been his rock for over 5 decades. The ripple effects of her disappearance are just beginning, and the consequences could be more far-reaching than anyone ever imagined.
Thought that he was above the law, so I can only, think that, he was sloppy in the way that he did these crimes, that there's probably a trail of evidence, not only involving him, but everybody in his circle that he would, delegate these responsibilities to. And those people are...
Now, let's talk about Diddy's legal battles, because to say they're piling up would be an understatement. The charges against him are not only serious, but seem to grow more damning by the day. From allegations of coercion to accusations of orchestrating elaborate gatherings with questionable participants, the list feels endless. And that's just the criminal side. On the civil front, lawsuits are flooding in like a storm. Attorney Tony Busby is reportedly representing 120 accusers. Yes, you read that right, 120. That staggering number alone is enough to make anyone's head spin. Lil Diddy's legal team is working overtime to deny the claims and portray him as a victim of exaggeration. The sheer volume of cases makes them impossible to ignore.
I feel like we're almost becoming numb to the lawsuit after the lawsuit after the lawsuit. And do all of the allegations against Combs so far that we've seen make the claims here, these new claims, do you think it makes it more or less?
So, how does Janice's sudden departure fit into all of this? It's more than just an emotional blow for Diddy. It's a logistical nightmare. Let's not forget that Janice was one of his most vocal defenders. Her public statements, where she described the allegations as a public lynching, were a key part of his defense strategy. She was the family's moral anchor, the one person who could vouch for Diddy's character and upbringing. But now, with her sudden disappearance, it feels like even his closest allies are abandoning ship. And while no one is saying it outright, the whispers are growing louder. Could Janice's vanishing act mean she knows something the rest of us don't? Is there a missing piece of this puzzle that has yet to be revealed?
The 8 people in the videos, the 8 celebrities in the videos, were allegedly victims of crimes. We know who they are, but we will not be naming them, famous or...
Financially, things are just as dire. According to insiders, Diddy is facing a cash flow crisis that could seriously impact his ability to mount a strong defense. High-profile legal battles aren't cheap, and he needs the best lawyers money can buy. But with Janice allegedly taking a significant chunk of his remaining funds when she fled, his resources are thinner than ever. And then there are the settlements. While Diddy's team insists that settling doesn't equate to an admission of guilt, the payouts have reportedly been staggering. Each one chips away at his fortune, leaving less and less for his defense, making his legal fight even more challenging.
First of all, I can only imagine how sloppy Sean Combs was with evidence when he got busted with those 2 machine guns or 3 machine guns with the altered serial numbers. So I really don't trust Sean Combs or the people around him's ability to properly cover up anything. So I envision that you're going to see at trial payments from his Amex for flights for people, straight payments directly from his company to people.
The financial strain isn't just about legal fees. Diddy's once thriving business empire is also cracking. From his music label to his fashion ventures and spirits brand, everything is under scrutiny. Sponsors are pulling out, partnerships are dissolving, and public perception is shifting fast. Even some of his most loyal collaborators are reportedly distancing themselves, unwilling to be linked to the growing controversy. It's a domino effect. One collapse threatens to bring down the entire structure, leaving Diddy's legacy and fortune hanging in the balance.
Is important because this happened in hotels, in places that have surveillance, that there's records that could be consistent with his testimony about when he alleges that these parties took place. He probably has his own information about who attended the events. When you're somebody like Sean Combs and you're such a celebrity and you're engaged in this type of behavior, people around you are memorializing it on the...
Then there's the family dynamic, or what's left of it. Janice's disappearance has created a void no one seems able to fill. Diddy's children, already struggling with the media circus surrounding their father, now face the added stress of their grandmother's absence. Janice was always a central figure in their lives, the glue that held the family together. She showed up for school events, red carpet appearances, and family vacations. Her sudden departure feels like abandonment, leaving the family reeling. One insider described the atmosphere in the Combs household as tense and fractured, with everyone walking on eggshells, unsure of what's coming next. The emotional toll is unmistakable.
He is very, very dominant. Like, he wants to control the situation. He wants to control his inner circle. He wants to make everyone have a good time and enjoy his parties. And so, it is scary because you think, this person or possibly his social network or the people he's around could make or break your career.
The emotional toll isn't limited to just the family. Diddy himself is reportedly struggling with feelings of betrayal and confusion. Sources close to the music mogul say he's been asking why his mother would leave at such a critical time. Some speculate her actions have left him questioning everything he thought he knew about his upbringing and the people he trusted most. It's a devastating blow, and one that couldn't have come at a worse time. What's even more troubling or fascinating, depending on how you look at it, is the role public opinion is playing in all of this. Diddy has always been a master at controlling his narrative, using his charisma and influence to shape how the world sees him. But this time, the narrative is slipping through his fingers. Social media is ablaze with theories and speculation, with hashtags like #DiddyDownfall and #CombsChaos trending almost daily. Some fans are rallying behind him, insisting he's the victim of a smear campaign, while others are less forgiving. They point to the mounting evidence and ask how much more needs to come to light before people start taking the accusations seriously. The public is divided, and it's unclear which side will ultimately prevail.
But it will be up to the jury. And there's really another piece of this case, and that's the racketeering case. And they don't really talk about that. Diddy's attorneys, Sean Combs' attorneys, they stay away from the racketeering part of this. They are focused solely on the trafficking part of this case.
Let's not overlook the documentaries hitting streaming platforms like Wildfire. From Peacock's Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy to Discovery's The Fall of Diddy, these exposes are painting a picture of a man whose empire was built on secrets and scandal. Each documentary uncovers new revelations, new witnesses, and fresh reasons to question Diddy's legacy. While his legal team dismisses these films as sensationalized and one-sided, they can't deny the impact they're having on public perception. In the court of public opinion, perception is reality, and right now, the reality is looking grim for Diddy.
Well, certainly there's a lot of information that needs to be substantiated, investigated, and those kinds of things. But when we look at people who become offenders, we oftentimes see early exposure to whether that's or actual behavior, and we oftentimes see that within the family.
One of the most damning aspects of these documentaries is how they tie Diddy's past to his present. Childhood friends, like Tim Patterson, have come forward with stories suggesting that the seeds of his current troubles were planted long ago. Patterson's accounts of the wild gatherings at Janice's house, where anything seemed to go, have only added fuel to the fire. While Diddy has always been open about his rough upbringing and the challenges he faced, these new revelations cast his past in a much darker light. It's one thing to overcome adversity. It's another to perpetuate the same behaviors that once caused you pain.
So remember when I said Diddy mother might be the originator of the freak-offs?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so apparently tomorrow there's the Peacock is dropping the Diddy documentary. It's called Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy, and the doc gets into Diddy's childhood and his experience growing up in connection to the lawsuit and assault allegations he's currently facing.
Even more chilling are the testimonials from former employees, ex-partners, and industry insiders. These aren't just random voices. They're people who were once part of Diddy's inner circle. Their stories paint a picture of a man who used his power and influence to get what he wanted, often at the expense of others. Whether it's former girlfriends recounting troubling encounters or employees describing a toxic work environment, the narrative remains consistent. Diddy was a man who thrived on control, and when that control was challenged, things quickly turned ugly.
You say the wrong thing, or you complain, or you know, I don't know. There's an element where you're just, I guess, manipulated in a way to make you feel like, oh, you have to please everyone around you. You can't say anything wrong. You don't want to say a bad thing, or you know, when they're constantly asking, would you like to do drugs? And you're like, well, I don't do drugs. And they're like, well, why don't you do drugs?
And let's not forget Janice's role in all of this. While she's often portrayed as a loving but flawed mother, her sudden disappearance raises some serious questions. Was she aware of the allegations against Diddy before they became public? Did she play a role in enabling some of his behavior, either directly or indirectly? If so, does her departure signal guilt, or is it simply an attempt to protect herself? These questions may never be fully answered, but they certainly add another layer of complexity to an already tangled story. As the trial date nears, the stakes for Diddy couldn't be higher. This isn't just about clearing his name, it's about salvaging what's left of his legacy. But with each new revelation, each new lawsuit, and now the added drama of his mother's disappearance, it's becoming harder to see a clear path forward. His empire, once a symbol of triumph and resilience, now feels more like a house of cards, teetering on the brink of collapse. And yet, despite everything, there's still a sense of uncertainty. Will Diddy manage to turn things around, or is this truly the beginning of the end for one of hip-hop's most iconic figures? Will Janice resurface and provide clarity on her actions? Or will her disappearance remain one of the great unanswered questions in this saga? As the dust continues to settle, or rather, as the storm rages on, one thing is clear: this story is far from over. In fact, it feels like we're only just scratching the surface. Stay tuned, because if there's one thing we've learned about the Combs family, it's that life for them is anything but predictable. As this drama unfolds, we can't help but wonder what's next. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more celebrity gossip and intriguing stories. Until next time, stay curious.